even if they submit them at the time.
So where's your office?
I figured you'd be the last one in, so you could just.
That was smart. All right, I move that we return to executive session to discuss personnel pursuant to the exception under COMA allowing for the justification for non-elected personnel. I always stumble over that. And the open meeting will resume at 7:30. Is that okay? I think that'll get it.
It's fine.
I think we can do it. 7:30. Phil has seconded. All those in favor?
Aye.
Say aye. Aye. I forgot
I
my.
tapped out the book.
I move we return to executive session to discuss personnel issues pursuant to the justification for non-elected personnel under coma, and the open meeting will resume at 7:45.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
With Mr. Dorothy?
Oh, yes, with Mr. Dorothy. Thank you.
Okay, I didn't see that.
I totally feel like you hit the face painting booth at the Maple Leaf Festival.
Yeah.
Oh.
That was Mike Tyson when she first came in.
No, then you can see it's blue. It does look like, does some glitter
Here's what it
there.
looks like. We're on a 5-minute recess, by the way, for restroom break.
I
Were there
think it
eggs?
looks like something out of Guardians.
Oh, Kelly.
Yeah, there you
should've
go.
said no eggs.
Avatar.
Okay, did you hear that? Discussion about considering a higher standard for employees on the mask exemptions. What I can say to you, and most certainly we can have a discussion here, is in talking with the administrators and myself, I would highly recommend to the board to leave this as it is for a lot of reasons. If you want to have more discussion on it, we can, but at this time, I think we feel pretty strongly we would like to just leave it as we're working right now and making it work.
Let me start in case
It's
it
not
saves us-
perfect, but
Let me start in case it saves us time. I brought it up as much as anybody, and I'm listening to the feedback, and I'm not gonna talk about it tonight.
Do we need a motion? Or
No,
we just leave it alone as it is?
if the board is in
Everybody feels
agreement,
strongly
we're
the other
leaving
way.
it alone, we move on.
Yeah, the only thing I'll add to that is, it was mostly a legal question from my
Sure.
standpoint. I think we had disagreement on the legal interpretation of that mandate there that we're getting from different attorneys there, and I hope I get the sense that in the community that this has been interpreted as a lack of trust in our staff members, and I truly want to, I've apologized many times in emails this week about this. It was truly just a logistical legal question.
Sure.
What does liability apply for us? And it's not an indication of not trusting our staff members by any means. But so I'm with Andy as well, that I'm happy to let the interpretation most recently gotten from our legal counsel here that we can follow as we head on with the case call for our staff.
I would just say, Paul, how this kind of rose to us was maybe a misunderstanding with one administrator. I would just ask that we apply it cleanly and consistently, and every administrator knows what's expected and what they can accept, what they don't have to accept.
And we had that discussion today.
Any other thoughts or discussion? Okay, then there's no action we need to take on that. How it is how it is. All right. Moving on to ESSER 3 grant application.
Okay, Jana and Cindy and I have been working on this. The two ladies have really gone over with this. We most certainly completed our meetings, our stakeholder meetings, went through those, got lots of good, really, we changed several things in here, and Jana might point those out as we go, but she changed several things from the input we got from staff, students. The students were really, we had a great meeting with the students. They provided a lot of good information. So they tried, they worked on it, Tony, to try and make it bigger. There you go.
Tried,
That'll
but I
help.
did
Don't
press
change
the laser
anything.
pointer.
Yeah.
Until you get my 15 other screens.
Yeah.
Just start typing in.
So I'm gonna let Jana start, and Jana will kind of walk you through the things that we're putting in the ESSER 3, not ESSER 2. She's got a nice comparison so you can see what's been changed back and forth. And then we're hoping to submit this week. We hope, so you guys have to be the final ones that say, yes, we're good with the plan to submit as is, or no, we really need to adjust some things here. So, Jana, go ahead, I'm sorry.
Okay, so since we saw you last week, we've had 4 stakeholder meetings. 2 of those were on Zoom. One was a student focus group, and then one was a conversation with our civil rights organization representative. And those focus groups included 19 adults and 6 students, and they did represent 6 of the 7 categories of the stakeholders that we needed to catch. We do not have any federally or state recognized tribes in our area, so that's the only one we couldn't do, so we put justification in the application for that. But otherwise, a lot of people do double duty, so they may be a teacher, but they're also a family, and so just different things like that. So we made sure that we were targeting each of those groups to get representation from all of those and asking people to wear different hats and kind of give us feedback from the different hats that they wear. So I'll just go through a little bit of the highlights of the feedback. I kind of summarized this from the different meetings that we had. You're going to want me on camera, aren't you? I know. That was strategic. So some highlights and just feedback that we got from the groups we talked to. They did want us to sustain and use the money over a 2-year period. They said, don't just spend it all in the first year. Can we stretch it out so we can get the most bang for our buck? So that was good. People was a big theme that we heard all around. And one of the quotes I wrote down was, staff are struggling, anything would be appreciated. And they said body, support, but then they kind of backed off and put a few more criteria around that and said we need qualified. So we don't just need bodies in here, we need people that can truly help, not people that we have to supervise again. So with that, we kind of broke it down a little bit more and said, how about the student support teachers? We talked about that. They definitely wanted to retain those positions at the junior high and high school, and then also add those positions to the intermediate center and primary center. They talked a lot about losing some of the staff that we've lost. The intermediate center, we had a full-time reading and a full-time math person, and we went down to a half-time reading and math. So that's a huge cut there. Teachers are feeling that. And then also at the primary center, we had a full-time math facilitator over there, and now they don't have that. So teachers really felt like having another person to help with like tier 2 and tier 3 time when they're trying to pull kids out and work in small groups, that would be really helpful. And I said, even if this is temporary, this is not a full-time thing, if this is only 2 years, would that be okay? And he said, yes, 2 years will help us get over this hump. There was some discussion, the junior high and high school have different models of what that student support teacher role looks like. And so they really wanted to redefine that. And some of that is it was so late to get those positions posted and get people. We didn't even know if we'd get people or not. So we just kind of said, let's run with it and see what's going to work. And so now we want to go back and revisit and say, let's create a better model that's going to work for us. And just make that more intentional with those roles. The social worker, we had suggested 2 in ESSER 2, and we want to retain that. We only hired 1. We want to retain that person. They wanted to explore if we could add another RAC worker at the elementary and mention things like behavioral support, social skills, and listening were things that they were really struggling with. And then also the health aides plus the extra nurse time, and the students really stressed that. I think they know how much time the health aides are really helping with contact tracing and supporting things. So they're like, yes, Lisa and her staff need more help. Okay. Tutoring, it seemed promising. They really hadn't used it that much. They'd heard about it, and this is really from the students level. They'd heard about it, and the staff, the teachers and people, and administrators we talked to are interested in seeing the data. And there is a little bit, we've had that running for about 8 days now, and flip over real quick. We've had 22 active students so far that have engaged with it. Some of those are uploading papers, and others are engaging with the live tutor session. Jumping to summer school, there were a lot of mixed reviews on this one. I know it was time consuming for our business staff and the payroll piece of it. It was hard to get teachers at first. We did have some comments that it was somewhat beneficial at the intermediate center. And we do have a little bit, I was looking just briefly at our FastBridge data. I looked at our growth, and this is a really quick analysis, looked at our growth from fall to winter and just the average growth and compared the summer school group and the students that didn't attend summer school. The ones that did attend summer school had a slightly higher, or slightly larger growth average than the ones that didn't, but it was not statistically significant. So it wasn't enough to really say, yes, that was the intervention that did it. So, however, if we jump to the high school, their version of summer school was credit recovery, and that was very successful for them. So they had students attend in person, and it was an attempt to help get students caught up on credits they had lost. So that was successful. We talked about subscriptions for the academic gaps. This was requested more by teachers and administrators than students. They're like, no, don't give us any of that. But also our students were representing the junior high and high school, and more of these programs are down at the elementary level. So they're not necessarily using them. They also said PPP and sanitation equipment was important. Our Kansas Action for Children representative suggested the physical infrastructure. That'd be something he was really concerned about, but felt like we were addressing that with the ionizer reimbursement. He wanted like early childhood or readiness for school. That was kind of where his mind started going, is we need to make sure kids are ready when they get to kindergarten. He talked about staff retention, which we've addressed that, nutrition, and we kind of talked to him about the free meals that everyone's offered right now, the backpack snacks we have, the mobile food pantry, how we've leveraged the homeless grant to buy a freezer so we can get food from Just Food. So he was okay with all that. He says, yeah, you don't need to put it in here if you have other sources that you're doing that with. And then he talked about board governance and making sure we had like technology for virtual meetings. And we said, yeah, we're pretty good on that. We've been doing kind of that, versions of that for a couple years now. One thing that became really clear from the students is that students know when PBL is authentic, when it's engaging, and it creates meaningful learning opportunities. They also know when teachers are checking the box on it. So that was an interesting discussion and a whole other conversation. So with that, all of this information went into what we wanted to fund for this year's ESSER 3 money. Cindy.
Yes. Okay, and I need to stand closer than some of yours. No, I can get it. Okay, and so when we started talking about how those thoughts translated into money, I did tell each group that we had set aside the $105,000 from the ionizers that the board wanted to pay back capital outlay for that. And then we also talked about that we had reserved the stipend for the project-based learning and the retention stipend. And nobody brought up extending those or interest in doing it again, so I left those alone. The things that they were suggesting is here the high school credit recovery. We've got that in for $20,000. I should have taken the 2021 date off. That was pertaining to $40,000 we spent last year. This one will only be at the high school for 22, and we'll see how far those credits get us into the second year. This is what we're intending to spend under ESSER 2 for this school year, and ESSER 2 should cover the next 2 years.
ESSER 3.
Sorry. So 22, 23, 23, 24. You know, we have 2 additional health aides right now, we have no idea what next year and especially the year after. So we can hire, with this, we can bring in 2 health aides for next year or retain what we've had. And then figure out the 3rd year. So we just have a little bit in PPE and sanitation, mainly masks is what we're buying now, and the additional sanitization products. We are getting Lexia and IXL as curriculum subscriptions. And then the social worker, we ended up getting one we could only find one for this year. So we wanted to, based on what they said, propose keeping that one position for the next 2 years for 110. And we do have the in-person and online tutoring going on. And here's the big one is, there was a lot of support for the student success teachers. And so this would fund $460,000 would fund definitely 4 positions, 1 in each building, for 2 years. So that's where the bulk of it has been allocated, and this is per what the feedback we got from the groups. Now it's at the board level for you to discuss, modify as needed, but the board has to decide ultimately what we're going to do.
So a couple things that I want the board to know. First of all, nobody in the state has their ESSER 3 money approved yet. About 20% of the school districts have submitted, and it is waiting, and I think in the month of February, they're going to take that route forward to the state board for approval. So if we get submitted this week, I'm hopeful that ours would be looked at for March. They, of course, will send this in. Someone from KSDE or from the committee will contact us and they'll say, hey, I've got a question for you, or we really think you need to have more in here. We don't think you have enough explanation. So we'll probably have to do some changes. So we'll go through that. Important to remember, as Cindy said, we don't know for sure, are we still going to be in the buying masks and that kind of thing 2 years from now? We may not be. This can be amended. So you go through next year and you need it, but the following year, that's no longer important. Let's spend the money elsewhere. You can go back and amend this. You got to go through the approval process again, but you can go back in and say, hey, we're just feeling like we don't need this anymore. We would like to spend it on this now, and then you can have it amended. So just because you approve this tonight does not mean that somewhere along the next 2 years that you don't amend this and say, hey, that no longer fits. Because there are things here, there's no way we can predict for sure if we're still going to be in masks, if we're still going to be doing all of this 2 years from now, we don't know. Of course, we went into this year with the idea that we wouldn't be doing all the things we're doing now, and we have. So this can be changed. I don't want you to think if you approve this now, okay, so what if, are we just stuck and we lose the money? No, you can adjust it and have it amended.
What was the limit that you could ask for?
900. What is it?
We were allocated $985,145.
So you asked for every penny that we could possibly.
Absolutely.
Okay, good.
You
I
did not leave
assumed
anything on the
I
table.
assumed that was so close to $1 million. I thought, well, maybe it was $1 million and we need to ask for another 15.
No, they literally broke it down, and
We're not
it goes
leaving-
down to the dollar.
We're not leaving
So-
a penny on the table. We
That's
did
awesome.
that for ESSER 2 and for the CARES money.
Yeah.
We asked for every single penny.
Yeah.
And so we're asking for every single penny for ESSER 3. And so is every single district.
Sure.
Maybe misremembering this, but don't we have to allocate a certain percentage of these
Yes.
funds for summer school?
It is to address learning loss. And I believe 20% has to be used for
At
learning
least
loss.
for learning loss.
Okay,
We've
it's
got
not
a lot,
designated.
we got a lot more than
But
that.
it's not specific to just summer school. I thought
No,
this
no,
was
no.
just summer school.
Not just summer
Okay,
school.
okay. Maybe that was previous time.
It was,
Maybe I'm just mistaken.
no, there is, you're right on the
I'll go look
20%.
that up.
It is in there
Okay.
for learning loss. But it's not specific to summer. Summer school's one thing you could say.
Yeah. So
address it.
on the summer school topic then, I'm a little concerned that we're not gonna have a summer school option for elementary age kids. But if there was no interest in that from those focus groups, I mean, I know you mentioned there was a bit of the bump there, we can't correlate it, of
Here's
course.
the
but-
question I ask them, Chris. I ask each group, we gotta make priorities here, and what I'm hearing is you've got things here that are gonna cost X amount of dollars and so on, but I said, we've got 980 and it does not go as far as you think it does. So I asked them specifically, what I'm hearing from you guys on summer school is, would you prefer to have summer school and keep summer school, or would you prefer to take the summer school money and put it into some of these programs during the regular year? And it was almost 100%. People said, well, if that's the choice I gotta make with the money I got, I'll put it into the regular year and take it out of summer school, except for the high school's credit recovery. They definitely said, no, we wanna hang on to that. That worked so well last summer. So, and we can do that. We can take out the other three and go with the,
This says 5% to address learning loss, 1% for after-school activities, and 1% for summer learning programs.
That's on Esther's 3 or Esther's?
This is 3.
Okay.
Yeah,
Which
I'm
one?
trying to look at they put it in the form of a webinar on SO3, so I need to, will reserve not less than 20% of its total ESSER allocation to address learning loss through the implementation of evidence-based interventions such as summer learning, summer enrichment, extended day, comprehensive after-school programs, extended school year, or other evidence-based interventions, and ensure that such interventions respond to the student's academic, social, and emotional needs and address the disproportionate impact of COVID-19 on student subgroups such as low-income families, children with disabilities, English learners, migrant, homelessness, foster care.
Susan, where's that coming from?
I think that NCS, National Council of Secondary Learning. I just Googled it, so I didn't dig deeper to know if that's.
Well, but our credit recovery program would cover the 1%.
Yeah, for secondary.
Right. So
Yeah,
if that's true, Susan, that's the first time I've heard it broken down like that. I've always heard, that's what,
Cindy would know better than me.
This is just what KSDE, the ESSER division that was kind of made for the last couple years. This is coming from them, so.
and that's, Susan, that's kind of what we went by.
Yeah.
I had not heard a breakdown like that.
This was just.
It's okay.
So, yeah,
So-
I think we're.
Yeah, the elementary not having summer school is my only concern, but I totally understand that I don't know how popular it would be anyway, I'll just put that.
ESY will still happen.
Yeah, I know that.
And I know
your
you're-
special education runs that way.
ESY will still
Yeah,
happen.
I don't know how many, and I say this, I had this conversation with my daughter.
Extended school year.
Oh, yeah, there you go, yeah.
I'm sorry.
My daughter pleaded with me to not have her go to summer school this year, so just keep that in mind, that I'm not advocating to put my own kids there, and they had a great time last year, they learned a ton, but I don't know how many kids we had in that program last year, and whether not having an option this summer would be putting any parents out from the expectation that they had that we're gonna continue to offer summer school, but again, that's just my feeling, I defer to
No,
you.
I had the same thought, but I didn't know if this was set in stone, that the decision had been made for sure not to do summer school.
No, that's why we're here tonight. I mean, if you guys feel
Do we have
like,
to make that decision tonight, because, I mean, if we pull it out of ESSER 3 fund, we do, but summer school could potentially still happen.
Just funding it through other means, I mean.
I mean,
But we'd have to have money to pay for it.
in Indeed, that's true.
Yeah.
See, before all this, we had ESY for special education kids, but we have not had regular ed special summer school for a number of years. So putting it in this summer was a new thing.
Right.
And most certainly it was the first jump on trying to catch kids up. What I think the principals will tell you, and Dan in particular, a lot of the kids that you wanted here didn't come. The kids that you tried to invite and get here that really needed the summer school, a lot of them, some did, most of them did not. And then we opened it up and we got other kids to come in because we had spots. But, so, you know, it's kind of, here's the water, this is really cool, but they won't. So I get your point, Chris. You know, if you guys feel strongly enough about the summer school, that was us reacting. We had it in there up to this point, but that's a reaction to the groups.
And my only other thought on this is if I'm looking at this and thinking we would have fewer kids in that, elementary kids in that summer program this upcoming summer, you could in theory consolidate that program into one building. I know last year we had like 10 or 12 kids in the class.
We used to do the elementary all in one building at one time. We tried to, what we did at one time.
Yeah. So it may not be a $40,000, or, well, it may not be a $40,000 allocation for next year. It may just be a $30,000 instead of the current 20. I'm just thinking that it may not be the full scale thing we did last year. It might be half the staff, half the students. But again, I really have a good barometer on how many kids are going to enroll in that either.
So I guess in a cost benefit analysis, I guess if I'm hearing staff saying we've tried this because this is something great to try, it didn't accomplish what we wanted it to accomplish, and we can, here are resources that when we can get these kids that would make a greater impact, then for me, even though in my traditional mind, summer school is completely logical and why would that not work? But if staff are saying, if we can front load these resources over here because this is what is actually, as you know, what we've seen has actually made a difference and we'd love to have more of it, then that's good enough for me. But I mean, I understand, there's part, I did that too initially, like, oh no, summer school, that was neat that we did that. But if we're not getting the kids that all of the kids that we want to be there, and we can serve them more by having, you know, a higher number of student success teachers, then that's what appeases me, you know, that's what I'm like, okay.
That's a great point, because those student success teachers are much more targeted support for kids versus the summer school option of you can enroll if you want to. I mean, you know what I mean? Like, we didn't mandate anybody had to go to summer school last year.
Right.
So in that sense, that does seem a much more advantageous way to spend the money, and knowing that it's going to go towards direct benefit of kids who have that direct need, not just.
That's how I had to process it, at least, and I don't know if that makes sense for you.
No, that helps a lot.
The other thing too is a cost benefit analysis in terms of staff. I think part of the reason why we had such the level of exhaustion coming into this year was because of the way we did summer school last year. And so I would like our staff to be refreshed, ready to hit, you know, pursue excellence and come back like, let's go. And I don't know that I got that feeling after summer school. Having visited and been around the buildings and stuff, and kind of, especially in that first fall semester, I mean, people were like this and like, shoot, we haven't even got started yet. So that's the other part of the cost benefit analysis for me that makes me say, okay, it's pushing my comfort level a little bit on paper, but when I think it through, I'm like, okay, I see. So, but that's just my comment.
Well, it's all about setting priorities. As I walked into the meetings, Chris, I'm thinking, well, yeah, we got summer school up there. We'll do it again like we did last year. Mm-hmm. And then most certainly they started talking and saying, well, you know, is that accomplishing? We really want that student success teacher in each of the buildings. Okay. So that's when I asked the question, what's more important then? Because we gotta make a priority here somewhere. Give up summer school. In fact, I had a parent in there to begin with who said, I loved summer school, my kids were in that. So then I asked her, I said, okay, so do you feel it's more important to hang on to summer school and do that, or put money into some of these programs? And she said, yeah, I hate to give up summer school, but it is not a hard decision for me that we need to have more help during the year.
This conversation satisfies my concern there, and I, as we're talking, I'm remembering that you're talking about adding in the student success teachers at the elementary buildings as well, and so there is that level of support that's going to be enhanced for those kids.
Oh, it'll help. We think that can help a lot more kids.
Well, thank you for that conversation.
I did the same thing. I was like,
Yeah.
I get it.
I just really like because words make worlds, and I like the name student success teachers. I love how you frame that. Rather than what would we traditionally say, maybe interventionist or type of teacher or something. At-risk teachers. Yeah.
First semester too,
That's-
yeah, we gotta change that.
That switch right there.
Yeah.
That's where it
makes
started.
Such a
Yes,
difference.
this is a placeholder, let's come up with something better.
Yeah.
Any other questions, comments?
Only other concern here is that we hit a staffing cliff at the end of 2024 here, where we're going to have 1, 2, 4, 6,
Yep.
8 staff members
Yeah,
that
I
will not have
understand
funding
that
for.
part of it.
Okay.
It does create that.
When's
And
my
you
term
gotta-
up on the board here?
4 years.
Thank you.
Just
I
got
think you're actually
on
over.
before, so Chris, I think you're
started
writing
yet.
that one out.
Okay,
Oh, look on the bright side.
Good luck
Maybe
with
we'll
that,
have
Chris.
another meeting.
Yeah. So
Okay.
I know that's a problem, but it's like, okay, but how do we best use
Well,
this?
it's 2.5
And
years
they're
of
all-
range of benefit. Yeah,
I know,
yeah.
and it's, so all the people are saying we need more people, qualified people. Okay, well, if we're gonna use the money to do that, we'll do it. But everybody's gotta understand, it all kind of just drops off the cliff in 2 more years. Then you gotta face that and say, well, what do? Well, we can't afford to keep the positions, or no, we're gonna find some money here or there so that we can afford to do this.
Well, and the gift of this is it gives you an opportunity to test drive before you commit permanent money. I mean, that's one of many things that is exciting about that.
So is that situation disclosed to those candidates before they're hired?
Yes, we absolutely tell them that this is based on, so they know this may be only a year or 2 gig. Yeah, we're always very honest with that up front when we hire people for these positions. They know I've got this for now, but I may not have it in another year or 2.
Bits of you all over.
So we would
Need a formal
need
motion?
a motion from the board to approve as is, or approve as amended if you're changing anything. We would need a motion to do that, and then we can submit this week then.
So I'd make a motion that we approve the SO3 application as is for submission next week.
Second.
Phil has moved and Chris has seconded that we approve the application for ESER 3 as presented. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? Okay, motion carries 7-0.
Thank
Thank
you.
you so much. for all
Yes.
the
That's
help.
good work.
That's awesome to get that. I know you guys worked really hard to crank that out, so. Thank you very much.
Yeah, I feel confident within the next couple of days we'll submit. So we've written most of it in there.
It's not a first come, first served basis or anything like that. It's not like it's
No.
a single pot of money.
Our money is allotted. We're guaranteed that unless we just can't come up with a plan that they can accept. That's our money. But they're more than willing to give it to other districts if we don't apply for all of it. So,
All right.
Okay, thank you
We
all
have
for
nothing
this.
left to do then except for adjourn.
Yeah, I motion we adjourn.
Second?
Nobody?
So I'm voting against.
Okay. Full moved and Kelly seconded that we adjourn. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye, motion carry, or meeting adjourned, 8:20.